All right, so in this video, let's actually go over a particular type of problem that we want to tackle. And I did this in Google Sheets a while back. And basically, the problem I have on hand here is we have this list of some text, basically. And basically what we want to do is calculate some word counts. So here you can see I did this in Google Sheets. Basically, we grab this text, extract a list of unique words, and for each word, we get a word count. Now, I had a question on the channel how to do this using Excel instead of doing this in Google Sheets. And that's exactly what I'm going to try to do in this particular stream. So a couple of things I want to mention here. So depending on the version of Excel you have, you could technically do this using Excel functions. So in the current beta version I have, there are some functions like text split you could use, which could help with this problem. You could use like toCol, this one, some new functions that are available. But these are beta functions which are not available. And the second concern I have about the function method of doing this is if you try to do this with a function in a cell, there is a limit how many characters you could have. And if you have a lot of text, the whole thing with a function is probably going to fail. And this is probably why we want to tackle this using Power Query instead of using any of these functions. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I have a couple of sets here. I have this data right here, which is what I'm going to start with to just figure out how we're going to build this. But I also have, if I go to this sheet 1, a little larger set of data that I could use just for testing once I figure out that whatever I'm trying to do actually works, right? So for now, let's just start with a smaller data because it's going to be easier to figure out if this whole thing is working or not before we move on to larger data sets. So I'm going to go to the sheet 2, and I'll just make a copy so that I have these, I guess, for future reference. So I'll just do Control Drag to copy this tab. And I'm just going to get rid of this for now. And this is pretty much our starting data point, right? So this is our starting data set. So this is the column header, I guess you could say, and this is the rest of the data. So I'm going to go ahead and select this and make sure that I convert this to a table. So I'll take this, go to Insert, on top here, go Table. And my table has a header, which means this like summary would be the header. I'm going to press OK. That's going to convert this to a table. I will rename this table. I'll go on top here and name this, I don't know, text data, I guess. That would be a good name. That's the name of this table. So at this point, as I got this name, let's try to see if we can now use Power Query to actually get this done. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to connect to Power Query. So I'll go under Data here, and I'll click From Table Range, which is going to connect to the table that I just made. So let's just give this thing a second to connect. Here we go. So we got this data. So one thing I want to do here, I want to make sure I convert all this text to lowercase so we don't have a problem with upper lowercase situation. So we should be able to do that pretty quickly here. So if I take this data, we should have, see under transform, let's see, I believe there is an option for that right here. See, format, I have lowercase. I'll do that. So I'm going to first convert this entire column of text to just lowercase. Now you can see this is all lowercase. That looks pretty good. The other thing you would probably want to do here is replace any extra characters you don't want to have here, like exclamation signs, commas, periods, like this sort of stuff. You can see, for example, I got a comma here, I get an exclamation sign here. So I'm going to do a few replace operations here to make sure I get that done. And see, I got this replace values option on top here. I'm going to use that. And for this, I'll do find, let's start with a comma. And for a replace, I'm not going to just remove it. I'm going to replace it with a space for these. So I'll take the comma and replace it with a space down here. I'm going to press OK. That will do it with a comma. There used to be a comma someplace in here. Now it's gone. I'm going to do that for exclamation signs too. Let's get rid of those. So again, I'll go replace values. I'm going to have to repeat this a few times. Unfortunately, Power Query currently doesn't actually support regular expressions, which would be very useful, like in this case. So I'm going to take that exclamation sign and do a space down here, press OK, and see now all the exclamation signs are gone. And you would have to repeat this for any special character you have, right? So I'm going to do this for question mark for now too. So I'll go back here, question mark, replace it with a space. That is gone. I'll do it for a period. Period would be probably a good common character that we would probably want to replace, even though I cannot see periods here. As far as I can tell, I'm going to do that anyway. So I'll do period and replace it with a space. Something like this. So I got my commas replaced, periods replaced, exclamation, question marks. So like for this particular data, that looks like that's enough. Now, depending on what data set you have, you may need to replace some other special characters too. For this, I can live with this. So I'm going to leave it like so. And now let's get to more interesting parts. So far I was able to convert this to lowercase, remove all the extra stuff we shouldn't have. So what I need to really do is take all this text from all of these different rows we got and basically merge it all together right now and hopefully make one big list out of this, right? Basically, I want one cell with all the text in it. So for that, we're going to start using advanced editor. So far, I was able to get this much by just clicking on all these different buttons and getting this done. But that would be probably pretty much as far as I'm going to be able to get here, to be honest with you, with this buttons. So let's just go to Home up here and click Advanced Editor. So this is going to open Advanced Editor so we can actually write some code. So this is our Power Query editor. So it would help if you understand how this whole thing works. I've done a video for M language beginners. If you have no clue how to work with Power Query language and M language, you may want to watch that video to just see how exactly that works. But for now, what I'm going to do, this is the last step I got. So I'm going to add another step. I'm going to do a comma, go to the next line, and I'll call this combined text. So that's what I'm going to call the step or variable, whatever you want to call this. And basically, I need to grab all the values I got from this previous step. And the previous step, it creates a table, basically. So we need to figure out how we can take a table and basically convert it to a combined list. Now, first of all, let's just go to Power Query documentation and figure out how we can combine a bunch of text. So I'm going to go to M language documentation right here, and we'll scroll down to functions menu, scroll down again, and under functions menu, we're going to find probably something related to text. That's what we're looking for. See, we have like text functions section here. So let's open this and see what we have to possibly join, combine things together. Let's see what we got. So for example, here, see, I got text.combine. Let's look into this and see what this function actually does. I'm going to click on this. So it's going to open this. See, it says text combine, and it says text as list. So basically, it's going to accept a list to combine them together. And you can see the example right here. So basically, we do text.combine, open parentheses, and in parentheses, we're going to give it a list here. So what that means is that to be able to use this, I need to make sure that whatever I had before is converted to a list, because I'm dealing here in this last step right here. This is a table. So we need to convert that table to a list. So first of all, let's just do that. So I'm going to try to do table dot. Let's see what methods we got here. Do we have something like list method or something like that? So I'm going to go through this. See, it says from list. So from list would take the list and convert it to a table. That's not what I want. Let's look for to list maybe. To list. Excellent. See, there's a table to list method. If I open parentheses right here, see, it's asking me for a table. And our previous step was a table. So I'm going to copy this step's name. I should probably just rename this so it's easier to copy paste, but this is fine. I'll just copy whatever this step is called and paste it right here as the table that I need to be converted to a list. So then I want to output this combined text. So that's not going to combine the text. Right now, we're just converting it to a list, but that's the variable name anyways. So let's just hit done and see what happens. So see, now this is, you can see here on top, it says that this is a list. It's no longer a table. So now I'm dealing with a list instead of dealing with a table, which is what exactly I need to use that other function. So I'm going to go back under home and go to advanced editor again. Now, this is a list at this point. Now, we could store it in a step. I guess let's do that. Let's just call it list of text. That will be this step. And then we're going to add another step here. And this is where I'm going to convert it to this combined text. So let's create this combined text again. And we're going to combine it from this. And based on the docs that I saw there was like text.combine. And this, if I open parentheses, see, it's asking for text as list. And I got that list over here, list of text. So I'm going to pass it here. And we're going to output that as in, as the output for this. Let's hit done and see what happens. So as you can see, I was able to combine all of that from all those different cells in one big, text or whatever this is. So that's fine. Let's go and see if there are any arguments in that function that could be used. If I go back to documentation, see, this is their example right here. And then here, see, it says combine text, and it says you can use this separated by some characters. So you can pass like a second argument as a separator, and that's going to be useful for us because right now, if I go back, if you check here, see, right after it says loves it right here, then the next phrase, my dogs, went right after this it without having a space. So we want to have spaces between those. So I'm going to go back to this. You can do it here. You can go back to this advanced editor, which will open the whole thing. So right here, I'm going to do a comma. And as a separator, I'm going to add a space. Like this. So if I add, so I'm going to do done, you'll see that, see, now it adds spaces here when it combines this thing together. So this works. So now I have this whole joined thing as one piece that creates this. So now I'm going to take all of this and basically split it by space so that we get a bunch of words separated in like a whole big list. So let's see what it is. So I'm going to go back to their docs and let's look under text and see if they have like a split function or something like that. So usually they will call that split. We're dealing with text, so hopefully text. Yeah, see text split, there's text split any. I'm not sure what the difference is. Let's just see what this text split any is. So separators as text returns a list of text values, splitting based on any character. Oh, so if you have a bunch of different delimiters, you want to basically separate by those. I just have one delimiter, so I don't think I'm going to need that. So I'll go to just text split, this one. So it says I'm going to need text and I'm going to need a separator. That's exactly what I need. This is great for this. So I'm going to go back here, advanced editor, and I'll add another step. So I'm going to do a comma, go to this step. We'll call this list of, I guess, words. That should be a good name for this variable. So here I'm going to use that text. This is all case sensitive. So you want to make sure when you type text, it's uppercase T. And I think it was split or something. See, split, open parentheses. And it's going to ask me for text, which is going to be this combined text I have from previous step. So I'll use that, comma. And I need a separator, which is going to be a space. So I want to split this combined stuff by spaces. So I'm going to do that. And now we need to return this list of words. So as an in, we'll do list of words. Good. So I'm going to hit done. Let's see what happens now. So you can see what I was able to do is grab it all together, make one text cell, and now we split all of that by space. So we got every word pretty much on its own on a separate line, so to speak. Now, some of these words could, like, for example, you see here, there's this empty space here. And that could have happened because we could have had more than one space in the middle of a couple of words. And if we're splitting by spaces, then if you have more than one space, you basically start having all this middle spaces and all this stuff. So we probably need to get rid of them. And the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to first start by just trimming all of this to make sure that if there are any extra spaces before or after anywhere here, even though I guess there shouldn't be because we split by space. But as a precaution, let me just do that. So I'm going to take this, go back to home. Well, actually probably transform is what we're trying to do. Now it doesn't let me actually do it directly here because this is a list. So let's convert this to a table. So we could convert it to a table in language, but I think there is an easy way to just right click on this, see to table. And now we'll take this list of things and convert it to a table. And it's saying, what's the delimiter? There's no delimiter, so we don't care about that. So now it's a table. Good. Now because this is a table, hopefully I should be able to select this column of values. So now as I got these values, I'm going to go to transform and let's see if we have trim here. Yes, we do. So I'm going to do trim to get rid of any possible spaces that I may have, even though I have a feeling we don't have any more spaces because I already kind of split by space, but let's just do that to be safe. And at this point, I could just go here and filter out any empties I got here, right? So I don't have to deal with those. So I'm going to open this and see the blank. I'm going to get rid of that. So let's take care of the blank out of here. I don't know if I should do it this way. I have a feeling like this may not do what I want. I'll go back and check what it did in the language. Because sometimes when you do filters like this by unchecking, what it does, it will basically just in the memory check all these different words instead of unchecking the blank. But I don't know what it's going to do. So let's just hit OK and go back and look at what it actually does in the back end. So I'm going to do this. You can see the blanks are gone here, those empty ones, which is exactly what I wanted. Now I'm going to go back to home and go to this advanced editor. Let's just see what that step did. So that's the step that was basically removing blanks. And this is good. See, it says it's not equal to double quotes, meaning it actually really removed blanks. That's what I wanted, which is good. I'm going to keep that as is. So I was able to, at this point, basically some of the steps I wrote myself here. The rest I auto-generated basically using the editor, which, as you can see, it works, right? So good. So at this point, basically, I got my list of words, which is excellent. So what we need to do now is make sure that if we have the same word repeating multiple times, get the count of it. Because now, for example, see, there's this, like here, we have this word, and then we have, let me see if I can find like duplicates, like this one. See, line 22 and line 3 is the same word. So instead of listing all those words, we want to get the count by word. And we should be able to do it very easily in Power Query. Now, before I do that, I want to rename this column because this is called like column 1, not the best name. So I'm going to double click on this name and I'm just going to call it words. It's good enough. So now here, right on top under home, we have this group by option. I'm going to do that, which is like a SQL group by statement when you can basically sum things or count things based on like some repeating value, somewhat similar to a pivot table. So here, that's what I'm going to do. I need to count rows, which is exactly what I want to do. So this is all good exactly the way it is. I don't think I have to do anything. I'm just going to press OK. And you can see now what happened if I, for example, look at some of these words, like my, see it says 2 because we have 2 of that, or this, we have 1 of these words. Now we get counts for each word. So if we wanted to know the most, like the highest count, then I can just sort this descending by this column. So now we can see this is the most common word that occurs in that particular data. And then this is the next common word, the next one, and so on. Basically, we got this whole thing now sorted. And this is pretty much what I wanted. So let's just put this back in our spreadsheet at this point. So I'm going to go to close and load, and we'll do close and load probably. And that should load this final thing in our spreadsheet. So there it is. So I was able to, let's just recap what I just did. I took this list with a bunch of text in it, and then we were able to grab this and get the word count based on that. Now, let me go check compared to my Google Sheets if these numbers match. So you can see like this 4, these 2 are 3. Let's see if I go to my Sheets thing when I did this a while back. Let's see if that they match. And yeah, they do. Looks like I'm getting the same values. I'm probably not going to check every single one of these to make sure, but let's just go and look. Taste and tasty should be 2 of each. So if I go here and look, here they are. Yeah, so this seems to work. So I was able to grab that and get all the counts. Now, this worked out very well for this data set. Now, depending on what other characters we have in our data, this may not work as well, right? So let's now try this on a larger scale data, like here when I have a bunch of like 569 lines with a bunch of words in them. So let's see what happens. So I should be able to basically just copy this new data, go back to here, and just replace this data in this table. So I'll just paste it over. And my table should automatically expand. See, now I got a bunch more lines. This is good. So at this point, to see what happens with this new data, how well this works with this, I'm just going to go back to this and just reload this to see if I get any errors or it just works or if it looks funny. So I'll just go here and refresh this query. And as you can see, we're able to grab that data now, do all those steps pretty much right away. we got our results. So you can see, well, obviously some of these are going to be most common words in text because they're used pretty much everywhere. So if we scroll down a little bit, see like this, it looks like there was some HTML in that text and that came up. So that might be something we might want to kind of try to tackle to see what we can do. With those HTML characters, maybe we should have replaced those characters, or maybe we should try to replace things within brackets, which would be a lot more difficult to do. That being said, as far as the words themselves, this looks pretty good. So yeah, so this looks pretty decent. See, I got most of these. Now this doesn't look good. See, there's like a quotation character apparently in that data, which is probably good to remove as well when you do that search and replace sort of thing. Now with dashes, it's kind of difficult to know whether replacing them is a good idea or not because there were some dashes here. And the reason for that, like if I go back to, where's that initial set here? Like, I'm not really sure how you would want to handle that. Like, for example, here, see, we have a dash between high and quality. So the question is, should you think about these things as two different words, like high as one word and quality is a different word? If that's the case, then you should probably also replace the dash with a space in those steps. If not, you probably would want to just keep it. And that's why it's kind of difficult to know what to do with dashes. It's kind of something you have to decide for yourself. So what I do want to show you is that what if we want to go back and kind of modify some of the things. So based on this new data I just did, I figured out that maybe I need to replace some more things before I actually do all of this, counts for words, right? And if I had to do that, I could right click on this and go back to edit. And that's going to open this. Now, in this, if I go back to advanced editor, see, this is where all those replace things happened. So you can see how I'm replacing the comma, then I'm replacing the exclamation, the question mark, this. So this is where you would want to add that. And we could add it both with just basically writing this code ourselves. So I could just go here and kind of insert a step in the middle of this and this, right? So to give an example, I could literally just copy this, paste it here. And let's say I've decided to actually remove those dashes. So I'm going to go here instead of this dot. I'm going to say replace the dash with a space. And then what I need to do is to make sure that here I have the previous step. So the previous step is this. So I'm going to copy the previous step, paste it here. So that's going to be taking the values from this previous step, or the table in this case, from the previous step, and do this replacement, which means this new step cannot be called the same. So we're just going to call it something else, right? So I'll just call it 4 here, since we've called it with this weird notation that it gives us. But then when I did this, I need to also make sure that I take this now and put it as the starting point for the next step, like this. And then this should now add another step in the middle that should replace those dashes too. And that is just fine. So you could add your steps directly going in the editor. We should also be able to just click, I believe here, see, like on this step 4 is where I was still replacing this. So this is where I did that last replacement. And I believe we can just add the step here in the middle ourselves. Let's see if it works, right? So if I wanted now to take after this, to take this and do another replace. So I'll do, where is it? Transform and replace values. And see, it's asking me, do you want to add another step? Yes. So when I insert that step, and in this step, I'm going to take the quotation character and replace it with a space. like so. So hit OK. And see, now that should add a step in the middle. Now I want to make sure that the rest of the steps didn't suffer from doing this. So I'm going to go back in the code and check this out. But for now, I'm just going to click on the last step here to see the final results. This one. Seems like everything still works. We get results, but let's just go check advanced editor. So this was the step I already had, right? So then it did this one for me. So you can see how it took this replace for step and it basically puts it here, which is good. Then it took this 5 and automatically inserted it here. So it did all those things for me. I didn't have to write the code. So I could go in the middle, as you can see, and still do those replacements. Then you want to just remember to click on the last step when you're done, right? If you had to do more replacements now, you just go after that replaced value 5 and replace a couple of more time. Now for me, this is good enough. So you want to make sure you go back to the last step now. And once you're done, you do your close and load. And now I have those extra steps in addition to those, which means now if we go back, we shouldn't have the dash and the quotation in this list anymore. We still have this HTML stuff, which if I just scroll down, you can see the ones that used to be like a quote or dash, they're gone. So I took care of those. And now we have our words. So you can see we got all the words here and how many of each we see. And if you wanted to know the number of unique words, basically this is just this list. So if you just count how many things you got in this list. So if I just go here and do something like counter, and just grab this column from here. So I'm going to just do Control-Shift down, close parentheses. That should go by the table name. See, it took the name of the table and then the column of that table. Hit escape. So that would be the number of unique words in that data set that I just looked at. So we got like 5,379 words. It's never going to be perfect when you're dealing with junk data like this, but it's going to be pretty close to real. And then we got the count for each, sorted from highest to lowest. And that's the way I would have done this in Excel. Now, again, the reason I would prefer this to functions is because with functions, there's a good chance if you start having a lot of data and a lot of rows, at some point when you try to combine all of this in one cell, you will run out of cell space, the limit of number of characters you can have. With Power Query, you're unlikely to hit that limit, so this would be safer for a larger data set. And we can close this later on. You can just go back, obviously, and paste your new data here if you have more or less records, and then refresh this. And by the way, if you close this panel, just like I did, you would go back to data and click on this queries and connections button. And this is this. And you would just refresh, and every time you reload your data, you can refresh and see your results. And there you go. That's how you can get your word counts using Excel Power Query.